Thanks for choosing RTV News. We start with a snapshot of what's coming up. President Paul Kagame has stressed that when a leader puts his interests first and not those of the people, it is hard to fulfill the responsibility that they should. And also coming on, President Paul Kagame has again stressed that all parties involved in the ongoing problem of insecurity in the Eastern DRC should pursue the proper channels to resolve the problem. Later on today, on Wednesday, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, the World Travel and Tourism Council, WTTC, announced that Rwanda will host its next global summit in 2023. This is RTV News. We are live from our studios in Kigali, Rwanda. I am Isabel Masozera. Now, top of our edition, President Paul Kagame has stressed that when a leader puts the interest of the people before his or her own, fulfilling one's responsibility becomes easy. The head of state made the remarks as new cabinet members were being sworn in on Wednesday. We start with Seljan Hori.
The two new cabinet members that have been sworn in will serve in the Ministry of Health as the Minister and the Minister of State. His Excellency Paul Kagame reminded them that the interests of the people must always come before their own.
Ubundi abakorera igihugu iyo bashatse koroshya imirimo iroroha kagenda neza.
Usually when those serving the nation want to make their jobs easier, it happens and things go well. When they want to complicate things, they do, and those responsibilities become a burden and produce problems. Those responsibilities become burdens when officials begin thinking of themselves more than they do those national responsibilities or the people they should work with, serving, so that we can all develop when things go well.
Kugira ngo twese ibintu bigende neza dutere imbere. Ariko nabasezeranya ko ubundi ubufatanye burahari.
Regardless, I assure you that the cooperation exists. As long as they are willing to work with those that they have joined and others that will come, things will go well.
Gufatanya n'abo basanze n'abandi n'abazaza ibintu bizagenda neza.
The new Minister of Health said he fully understands the importance of these responsibilities.
Ubuzima bw'abantu ni ikintu gikomeye yabigarutseho nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika avuga ati ibintu byose usanga.
People's health is very important, and that is something His Excellency the President of the Republic also noted, saying all things revolve around health because it is literally life. The people and their lives are the country, its lifeline, which is why these are very important responsibilities that I am ready to fulfill, working with others in the health sector as I have been doing in my other responsibilities. We are aware of the problems that exist. All we must now do is find solutions as quickly as possible. It is at the start of these responsibilities, but I am confident that we will achieve many good things as part of the team that I have joined today. Dr. Ivan Butera, the new Minister of State in the Ministry of Health, becomes the country's youngest serving cabinet member at just 32 years of age. I assure the President of the Republic and all Rwandans that I will not disappoint in these new responsibilities I have been given and will deliver what is expected. Like I said earlier, to be able to do that, one must constantly keep their responsibilities at heart, cherish their Rwandan values and apply them daily, be it at work or elsewhere, and all will be fine. Dr. Ivan Butera replaces Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Tarsis Munga, who will now head the University Teaching Hospital of Kigali, Sehashika, while Dr. Seben Sanzimana replaces Dr. Daniel Ngamije, who had served as the Minister of Health since February 2020.
Thank you, sir. In more news, President Paul Kagame has again stressed that all parties involved in the ongoing problem of insecurity in the eastern DRC should pursue the proper channels to resolve the problem and stop constantly blaming Rwanda. Seljin Hore continues.
The insecurity in the eastern DRC has dragged on for decades, despite the huge resources that have been spent by the international community to resolve it. Yet there has been a continued failure to address the root cause of that insecurity.
And there is not a single day, that I know, maybe you do, that these forces ever fought FDLR to try and remove them. But they've been so keen to fight the notorious, or famous, I don't know, M23. That's what happened in 2012. And we warned these people, we were warning them, and saying, you are dealing with half the problem. The other half will come back to haunt all of us. This is not a military issue. This is not a problem you want to resolve by force of arms. It's largely a political problem you need to attend to. You maybe help the Congolese government to address this problem. They ignored us. Fine. 10 years after that, the problem has come to haunt all of us. But of course, the easy way, again, they have, is blame Rwanda for it.
The reality on the ground in the eastern DRC itself is testament to the fact that Rwanda cannot be the source of the problems there.
There are over 100 groups, rebel groups. Did you know that? In Eastern Congo. Armed fighting for all kinds of things, I don't know, some of them. So they can't all be existing because of Rwanda. Certainly not. If it was because of Rwanda, maybe they would be together.
The reasons for Rwanda's victimization in all of this are usually not difficult to identify.
In comparison, Rwanda and Congo, there is more, much more, much more. Congo offers to these people than Rwanda. So naturally, these people must tread carefully when they are dealing with the Congo's problems. They must even assist Congo to alleviate their pain.
On the 23rd of May this year, FARDC rocket shelling hit Kinigi and Nyanje sectors in Musanze district, which also borders Gahunga sector in Burera district, injuring several civilians and damaging property. At the time, the Rwanda Defense Force requested that the expanded joint verification mechanism investigate cross-border shelling on Rwandan territory by the DRC's armed forces, FARDC. On the 28th of May, again this year, 2 Rwanda Defense Force soldiers were kidnapped while on patrol along the border. On the 10th of June, the DRC's armed forces, FARDC, fired 2 122mm rockets into Rwanda from the Bunagana area, striking along the Rwanda-DRC border in Nyabigoma Cell, Kinigi sector, Musanze district, close to midday. There were no casualties. On the 17th of June this year, around 8:45 a.m., an unidentified Congolese soldier armed with an AK-47 rifle crossed the Petite Barriere border in Rubavu district and began shooting at Rwandan security personnel and civilians crossing the border, injuring 2 Rwandan police officers. A Rwanda National Police officer on duty shot back in self-defense to protect border agents and civilians crossing the border. On the 7th of this month of November, a DRC fighter jet violated Rwandan airspace and briefly landed at the Rubavu airstrip before taking off. No action was taken by Rwanda at that time. Indeed, despite all of these openly hostile actions from the DRC, not once has Rwanda responded in kind. This was Rwanda's reaction to those acts of provocation.
I told him that that is enough invitation. I told the president of Congo that while initially I was seeking invitation and to work with them to deal with our problem, actually firing artillery across the border into our territory is a sufficient invitation. That statement still stands.
The Rwandan head of state also reiterated his commitment to peace.
So that problem needs to be addressed in their right context, and those problems are Congolese problems, they are not Rwanda's problems. But we can help because we are interested in a stable neighbor.
Rwanda's commitment to peace, however, should not be mistaken for vulnerability, and the head of state gave assurances to all people in the country, especially those living along the border area with the DRC, that national security is assured and that measures are in place to keep it that way.
You're still watching RTV News. President Paul Kagame has announced that Rwanda was never offered financial compensation for the return of the fighting terrorism in Mozambique. That operation stemmed from the will of the Rwandans to assist others that are in need. Seljin Hore once more.
The efforts of Rwandan security forces in the once deeply troubled province of Cabo Delgado have yielded spectacular results in a relatively short time. So much so, the port in the region has now officially reopened, but there is still much more to be done. It is clear that the terrorists in Mozambique have moved to other areas where we do not have a presence. So we have agreed with the authorities in that country that we should go after them, and that is what we are going to do. That is the reason we increased the number of our security forces there. However, I want to be clear about this. Not a single country or organization has paid us a cent for what we are doing in Mozambique. Not a cent since day one. I want to dispel all rumors that money may have been slipped under the table. No one is paying us. The president also pointed out that Rwandan security forces in the Central African Republic are also not financially motivated to be there.
Ingabo ziri muri bilateral muri Central African Republic usibye ko zishyurwa n'u Rwanda.
Rwandan forces in the Central African Republic as part of the bilateral agreement we have with them. In addition to being paid by Rwanda here, they also share with those in the UN that pays more. If the UN pays $100, then half goes to the soldiers that are part of the bilateral agreement. Did you know that? They share it, and that is how it is done. His Excellency Paul Kagame explained what motivates Rwanda to help other countries in need. We are by no means a rich country, not at all, but our wealth stems from other things. We may not be financially rich, but we are rich at heart and sufficiently motivated. We have given the little we have and even our lives to fight in conflicts abroad, because people do die when they get involved in such conflicts. Apart from the Rwandan security forces stationed in Mozambique and the Central African Republic, the country is also among the top 5 biggest contributors to troops to UN missions around the world.
We are rich at heart as a nation. Indeed. Now moving on today, on Wednesday in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, the World Travel and Tourism Council, WTTC, announced that Rwanda will host its next global summit in 2023. The CEO of Rwanda Development Board, Claire Akamanzi, reacted to the announcement through her Twitter feed, saying, and I quote, "We look forward to giving all a wonderful and Rwandaful welcome." Now, according to WTTC, Rwanda has put a lot of efforts in tourism. The country established the Visit Rwanda campaign aimed at promoting Rwanda as a tourism destination, which gained a strong reputation on the international market. Tourism is the largest of foreign exchange earnings in Rwanda and continues to be the pillar of the country's economy. Now, during a designated day of celebration for the East African community at its Arusha headquarters, the EAC Secretariat conveyed that the development objectives set for its member states are gradually being achieved. Precious Kirezi filed this report.
The African community was established 23 years ago on November 30th, 1999, with a signed unanimous agreement from the heads of state of member countries. Those residing in member states are of the view that the strides made over time by the EAC ought to be publicized more.
Usanga abaturage babyumva ibikorwa bya East African Community biyumvamo East African Community uretse ko nubundi bisaba gukomeza bigisha.
Most residents have community spirit and are informed of EAC activities. However, awareness campaigns to clarify what the community represents is a necessity.
Umuryango icyo uhagarariye, umuryango icyo ukora n'ibindi byose byiza bijyanye n'umuryango wa East African Community.
Tanzanian residents and delegates of EAC member states came together to engage in communal work, entailing thoroughly sanitizing the Kilomero market in Arusha, Tanzania.
Tubereke yuko turi kumwe tubashigikira kandi cyane cyane tubereke ko isuku arico gikuru.
We want to show them a supportive team spirit and emphasize the essential importance of sanitation. This will prevent disease outbreaks and remind them of the EAC's inclusivity.
The EAC's Secretary General has conveyed that integration and development of member states is a goal that is gradually being achieved.
We are talking of common markets. We are now people, we are in the process of having a common, instead of using passport, you use your national ID to travel to any part of East Africa. And those are some of the things now we are doing. If, for example, now you want to move from Kenya to Uganda, you don't use a passport, you use a national ID. If you want to go to Rwanda, you use a national ID. And therefore, we're in the process of making all the countries of East Africa to use now national ID instead of using a passport. And very soon, we are starting a common currency.
The East African community is compiled of 7 member states with a population total of approximately 300 million, and Somalia has expressed its interest in joining the community. Precious Chidezi, RTV News.
Precious and happy EAC Day to all members of the community. Now, the BK Group PLC has reported a net income of 43.5 billion Rwanda francs in the first 9 months of this year, an 18.4% increase compared to 2021. Prince Manzi has more.
This corporate, home of Bank of Kigali, BK General Insurance, BK Tech House and BK Capital Limited companies, occupies 30% of the Rwandan financial market. Today, Wednesday, the BK Group PLC revealed that the profit increased in all these companies as per the statistics of the 30th September 2022. The Chief Executive Officer of the Bank of Kigali, Dr. Diane Karusisi, emphasizes that these resulted into a net income of 18.4%. The total assets increased by 13.4% to 1.755 trillion Rwandan francs.
And that has allowed us to post an net income growth of 18.4%. So when you look at our financials, you'll see that our total assets have increased by 13.4% to over 1.7 trillion francs, which is 1,700 billion francs. We believe this is a very good performance. as usual, driven by the performance of the bank, but also subsidiaries that are now contributing more and more to the top and bottom lines of the BK Group PLC business.
The Chief Executive Officer of the BK Group PLC, Beata Habyarimana, states that the economy of Rwanda continued to upturn thanks to the measurements set by the government, hence expecting better results for the future.
Rwanda, we're happy to see that the exports growth rate kept showing an increase with 39.9%, which gives us the flow to expect better results in the future. This is due to several commodities and added value to minerals and manufacturing exports. Though, despite the energy and fuel prices keeping growing up, we expect to benefit from that, especially as Rwanda has acquired a new fleet with cargoes plane, allowing us to also expect financing exports more.
In the first 9 months of 2022, BK Group PLC states that it has earned 134.8 billion Rwandan francs, with a 66.8 billion Rwandan francs after the subtraction of the corporate's expenses. With the subtraction of a 23.3 billion Rwandan francs tax, the BK Group PLC had an income of 15.2 billion Rwandan francs during the third quarter alone. The BK General Insurance earned 2.1 billion Rwandan francs from 1.8 billion last year. This means a 15% increase rate. BK Tech House, a technology corporation, had an 18% increase rate to 867.2 million from 735.7 million Rwandan francs. The BK Capital Limited earned 677.0 million Rwandan francs, as the increase rate of its services is 128.3% to 2.4 billion Rwandan francs. Prince Manzi, RwandaTV News.
Thank you, Prince. Now, according to various institutions in charge of ensuring the protection of women's rights and men's engagement, they are saying that men's engagement is actually key in advancing gender equality and women's development. This is what was filed by Olive Tete.
During discussions aimed at preparing the Women Deliver Conference 2023, one of the largest multi-sector convening to advance gender equality, it was highlighted that there is need to engage various key players to address challenges that hinder women's development. Batamuriza Mireille, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Gender and Family Promotion, points out that the conference will be a good platform to discuss issues hindering women's development. This will be a good platform to discuss current global challenges first and how they affect women and girls, highlighting our role, but as well as the role of men and boys in ensuring the success of gender equality. Dr. Maliha Khan, the CEO of Women Deliver, an organization that champions gender equality and rights of girls and women, notes that the conference will enable inclusive and co-created spaces that foster solidarity for sustainable solutions on gender equality.
We're trying to highlight some of the issues that are most pertinent to girls and women. For instance, gender-based violence, the lack of economic participation, the multiple crises, including, of course, the pandemic, which had such a toll on the health of girls and women, but also the food crisis that is happening. We know so many communities across Africa are facing a real crisis in terms of food security and availability, but also the climate crisis. We cannot forget that, of how many countries are facing the devastating impact of the climate crisis, particularly low and middle income countries that have contributed the least to the climate change and are suffering the most from that. I myself am from Pakistan, and we saw recently in the summer the devastating floods that displaced 33 million people in the country, and Pakistan contributes 0.01% to climate change, and yet had such devastating impact on them. And so we hope that many of these issues will be raised with key decision makers, and then the key priorities for girls and women will be focused on going forward.
Janet Kem, the representative of UN Women in Rwanda, points out that men's engagement in promoting gender equality is crucial.
Gender inequality is a triangle issue. It's society, man, woman. Society defining norms differently, defining rights, defining attributions, expectations differently for man and woman. And because of that, there is a disequilibrium. in the way we interact and react to one another. So if we have to really smooth in or bring the equilibrium, the equality we're talking about, we need to work with men as partners.
The next Women Deliver Conference will take place July 2023 in Kigali, and it will be the first time that it will be taking place in Africa. Olive Nete, RTV News.
And that's all the time that we had today. Always a pleasure bringing you the latest here in Rwanda and beyond. We hope we earn the pleasure of your time. I am Isabel Masozera. Do stay with RTV.